luftën kundër korrupsionit dhe çështjet dhe për të diskutuar mbi temën avancimi I sistemit të drejtësisë në shërbim të gjithë qytetarëve të Kosovës. Ndoshta do filloja unë me pyetjen e parë për ambasadën që të definohet koncepti I drejtësisë në kultura të ndryshme. Apo rrezikojmë të mos e kuptojmë mirë mungesën e drejtësisë dhe drejt një rrugë drejt pamundësisë së ripërtrirjes së vetë këtij sistemi të drejtësisë.
Me si organizatën që merren me drejta të grave. Jemi në atë pamundësinë për kabo nuk ekziston një veç I qeverisë. Por tje duke monitoru sepse I avancojnë të drejtat e grave në qeveri. Faleminderit shumë edhe më falni se
Më tani filluar të lërë para të ndërët lartë. Kemi komisionës për diskutimin ose
Shteteve po mundu, na adorën protesta paktore edhe diçka. Që janë smut, edhe policia dhe smut, tash dikush po thotë se kesh media diçka tjetër. Tash më thonë, nuk kam di interes ose që rat nuk sheh.
Këto institucione që në bazë të tutës janë shumë të favorora.
Para se me fillu, ju kisha lutur që t'i shkyçni telefonat ose eventualisht t'i lëni në thjeshtje, në që mos kemi interferencë. I nderuari ambasador I Shteteve Bashkuara të Amerikës, S.Kosnett, të nderuar përfaqësues, lutem që të hap sesion e ri të formatit FOL Hapur, I cili tashmë është duke u zhvilluar nga Lëvizja FOL që nga viti 2011. Ky format deri më tash na ka mundësuar të diskutojmë mbi çështje të ndryshme, të cilat lidhen me politikën, politikat publike, qeverisjen, sistemin e drejtësisë, luftën kundër korrupsionit dhe çështjet e tjera të cilat si qëllim kanë përmirësimin e veprimit dhe jetës së të gjithë qytetarëve të Republikës së Kosovës. Andaj sot I pranishëm me ne dhe për të diskutuar mbi temën avancimi I sistemit të drejtësisë në shërbim të gjithë qytetarëve të Republikës është ambasadori I Shteteve të Bashkuara, z.Philip S.Kosnett, të cilin e ftojmë të marrë fjalën. Zoti ambasador.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Elbasan, and thank you for the invitation to speak today at Lëvizja FOL. It's a privilege to be here representing the United States, Kosovo's closest partner, to offer my thoughts on a topic that is vital to Kosovo's future: how institutions and individual citizens can work together to strengthen the rule of law and make Kosovo a more just society. First, let's define the terms. We often talk about rule of law in Kosovo, and I think the dictionary definition of rule of law is pretty clear. The principle that all people and institutions are subject to and accountable to law that is fairly applied and enforced. In democracies like the United States and Kosovo, writing, interpreting, and enforcing the law is the formal responsibility of the government's three branches: the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive branch. But it's also the responsibility of citizens to participate in ensuring, and I will say it again, in ensuring that all people and institutions are subject to and accountable to law that is fairly applied and enforced. The great American Senator and Attorney General Robert Kennedy said the same thing more poetically half a century ago. The glory of justice and the majesty of law are created not just by the Constitution, nor by the courts, nor by the officers of the law, nor by the lawyers, but by the men and women who constitute our society. who are the protectors of the law as they are themselves protected by the law. But I submit to you that following the law is only one element of justice. Okay, what do I mean by justice? Try Googling the word justice, as I did when I was writing the speech, and you will find some vague and unhelpful definitions. For example, one definition, justice is the quality of being just. That's not very helpful. So justice is hard to define, but having lived in many countries, I've come to realize that attitudes about justice often deeply reflect history and culture. In some places, history and culture dictate an emphasis on strict administration of written laws, written by a legislature, or perhaps derived from religious texts, to ensure fairness and impartiality. Citizens are expected to accept a court ruling even if it negatively affects them, even if they don't agree with it. In other places, people view the law more as a general guideline, but if the court rules against them, they're quick to dismiss the decision and assert their own definition of fairness. This is frequently true where a minority group believes, perhaps with good reason, that their government does not offer them equal protection under the law, or even that laws were written specifically to disenfranchise them and deny them equal justice. And in some places, people are raised with the idea that providing opportunities for family or friends is more important than any responsibility to an abstract law or to society as a whole. I will come back to this point. Now, this would be a good place for me to say that the United States, which is a much older republic than Kosovo, is still struggling to build a society where all citizens and residents can be confident of equal protection under the law. The American Constitution and our laws ensure equal protection and promote equal opportunity, what we call the pursuit of happiness, without regard to race, ethnicity, religion, gender, or sexual orientation. But we argue energetically in and out of the courtroom about whether this is really true in practice and how to balance competing interests. So I don't want to give you the impression that building a just society is easy or that the United States has all the answers. We do understand the importance of the goal of equality under the law, and we keep fighting to make it a reality. Now let's talk about Kosovo. I submit that an expansive view of justice, a concept that includes equal rights and opportunities, equal protection under the law, and confidence that government officials will be held accountable to the people, would create hope for Kosovo's youth and confidence among Kosovo's partners. This view of justice expands benefits to all of society. So what are the benefits of living in a just society with equality for all? I believe that a just society is a more peaceful society, not without disagreement, but with established nonviolent means for working out differences among groups and between citizens and government. In a just society, people feel that justice has been served when they understand how decisions are made, even if they don't agree with them. A just society is the foundation of a peaceful, prosperous society. A society in turmoil, a society without the predictability that rule of law brings, is a less attractive place for entrepreneurship and job creation. Okay, first, the good news about Kosovo. As Kosovo enters the second decade of independence, Kosovo has capable institutions and sound laws stemming from its constitution. Citizens have more access to information on government decision-making than ever before. Kosovo is impressing the world as a regional leader in public procurement transparency and victim compensation. And in a trailblazing move, Kosovo passed comprehensive whistleblower protection legislation before the European Union did. Kosovo's citizens have much to be proud of on this front. But you have a lot of work to do as well. So, what are the challenges facing Kosovo with regard to the practice and not just the theory of justice? And how can Kosovo's institutions and citizens strengthen both the formal rule of law and the country's informal commitment to justice? Let me give you several examples to illustrate what I mean. Specifically, an example where the government is willfully ignoring the law, an example where the law itself may need to be re-examined, and finally, an example where the government may have acted legally but not justly. And then, to give praise where due, I'll talk about a government agency that is doing justice right. First, let's examine the Dejani Monastery land case. The Constitutional Court, which bases decisions on Kosovo's constitution, confirmed that the Orthodox Church owns several parcels of land. But local and central level cadastral officials have refused to implement the decision with the tacit support of senior officials of the government of Kosovo. A month from now, we will mark the 3-year anniversary of the Constitutional Court's ruling, with zero progress on its implementation. And while some of you may not think that the issues faced by the Serbian Orthodox Church are your concern, if you believe in equality, if you believe in a justice system that works for all citizens, you should pay attention to this case. Because when it comes time for you to rely on a court decision, will you be able to when the government ignores some rulings and enforces others for political purposes? Justice, the kind that protects all citizens equally, requires consistency and predictability. And respecting and implementing court decisions is an obligation of government agencies. Where rule of law is respected, court decisions are not open to negotiation or personal interpretation. Let's move to an example of legislation that was written with good intentions but has been hampered by politics. The amendment to the 2014 law on the status and rights of the martyrs, invalids, veterans, members of the Kosovo Liberation Army, and civilian victims. Now, this law gave official status to survivors of wartime sexual violence. With the support of leaders like former President Atefete Yayaga and Dr. Farideh Rashidi, and through the courageous testimony of survivors like Vasfiye Krasniqi Goodman, survivors are beginning to come forward 20 years after the fighting. And they deserve immense credit for having turned an important idea into legislation. But this amendment is attached to an existing statute which holds status from those who were affected after June of 1999. Organizations that work with survivors made all this clear when the legislation was passed. But did the assembly members who wrote and voted for this law hear from the people most affected or from experts in the field? Can the Assembly be persuaded to modify the law so it serves all victims? And similarly, will the Assembly extend the social and financial benefits of real and imagined KLA veterans, the numbers of which have become suspiciously high, to the survivors of sexual violence? Then there is the politicized appointment of unqualified leadership to the Kosovo Property Compensation and Verification Agency, appointing an unqualified individual who is not trusted by all communities to enforce the law equally, as the Assembly did in this instance, demonstrates an unwillingness to uphold the rule of law, to uphold the values of freedom and equality on which this country was founded. And let's be honest, there are many reports in Kosovo of people who are given jobs or government appointments who are not the most qualified candidate, but who are connected to influential people. Now, I know some cultures believe providing opportunities for family and friends is more important than an abstract goal like equal opportunity. A recent poll noted that only about 20% of respondents in Kosovo believe that merit is the key to opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not the path to prosperity. Okay, let me balance these examples with a more positive one. At the Ministry of Local Governance, courageous civil servants have committed to hiring practices based on experience and qualifications rather than political connections. I say these civil servants are courageous because their commitment to rule of law has invited intense political pressure and even attempts to intimidate them. Yet the transparency and accountability of the hiring practices at this ministry are precisely the reasons that donors increase their support, making even more resources available for municipal grants. This respect for rule of law is directly benefiting many citizens in many municipalities, rather than a handful of powerful, wealthy politicians in Prishtinë. This illustrates the broad concept of justice I am outlining, one that favors the rights of all citizens over the narrow privileges of a few. One where the government, at both national and municipal levels, acts after the Assembly passes laws to ensure that laws are actually implemented fairly and in full. By embracing justice based on equal rights and opportunities, rule of law, and accountability for all of Kosovo's citizens, you can ensure Kosovo achieves a brighter future. A future in which people succeed based on merit and talent. A future in which all citizens, women, non-majority groups, members of the LGBTI community, and people with disabilities all enjoy equal opportunity. A future in which no person is above the law and no person fails to receive the protections of the law. I believe Kosovo's international partners have a constructive role to play in shining the spotlight on violations of justice as well as positive steps, as the US government and others have been doing for some time. We will continue to do this. Expect to hear more soon about ways that we can help ensure that those who engage in corruption or organized crime experience consequences for their corrupt behavior. But ladies and gentlemen, the primary responsibility for ensuring justice in Kosovo must lie with the people of Kosovo, acting both individually and collectively. Let's turn to civil society organizations, like those represented here today, that are making progress as watchdogs and advocates for Kosovo's citizens. However, for all the progress you've made, there's more you could do to multiply the impact of your efforts through coordination and mutual support. For example, it was a civil society group, an inter-ethnic youth organization, that advised us about the politicized appointment of unqualified leadership to the property verification agency I mentioned earlier. But once the American embassy and other international observers spoke publicly against the hiring, why weren't civil society organizations amplifying the concerns of these youth? And where was the media in this case? The media's role is crucial in any democracy, and it can be a powerful ally to civil society organizations. Journalists have a vital role to play in ensuring justice for all of Kosovo's citizens. To do so, they need to be protected from undue pressure or threats. Honest journalism doesn't mean making up stories or spreading crazy rumors to sell papers or collect clicks. It means courageously exposing corruption, revealing discrimination, uncovering inequality, and demanding accountability. It means covering stories that will help majority communities understand the perspective, understand the issues faced by minority groups and other vulnerable groups. Finally, and here I have saved the most important point for last, every individual citizen has a role to play in upholding the rule of law. Expect more from your elected officials. The establishment of democracy in Kosovo was a tremendous achievement. Don't take it for granted. Vote, write, speak out, demonstrate peacefully. Expect politicians, police, prosecutors, and judges to meet their responsibilities of providing justice fairly, equally, and with honor. Engage in formal legal processes, even if it takes more time and effort. Invest in justice institutions and hold them accountable to ensure that they live up to the ideals enshrined in Kosovo's constitution, the bedrock of your rich and multi-ethnic society. Finally, expect more from each other. Expect more from your fellow citizens. I thank you for your attention and look forward to a frank and open discussion on these issues. Permit me to close with one more quotation from an American hero, Martin Luther King. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny.
Atëherë, të nderuar të pranishëm, me lejoni që të hap bashkëbisedimin, ambasadorin Kosnett. Po para se të hapim bashkëbisedimin, ju kisha lutur që pyetjet apo komentet të bëhen vetëm në temën e cila tashmë është e përcaktuar dhe e cila është avancimi i sistemit të drejtësisë në shërbim të gjithë qytetarëve të Kosovës. Ndoshta do filloja unë me pyetjen e parë për ambasadorin, e cila ndërlidhet me fillimin e fjalimit. Zoti ambasador, me që është e vështirë që të definohet koncepti i drejtësisë në kultura të ndryshme, atë duket që është e vështirë të definohet edhe elementi apo fenomeni i korrupsionit në sistemin e drejtësisë. Kështu që ne si shoqëri kosovare apo rrezikojmë të mos e kuptojmë mirë mungesën e drejtësisë dhe fenomenin e korrupsionit në sistemin e drejtësisë. Apo rrezikojmë që ky sistem të shkon drejt një kalbjeje, e cila është sinonim edhe i korrupsionit, dhe drejt një rrugë drejt pamundësisë së ripërtrirjes së vetë këtij sistemi të drejtësisë.
I have great faith in the people of Kosovo. I think Kosovo has made tremendous progress on rule of law, as it has on other issues, peace, in the last 20 years. So I don't think anybody should become disheartened about the opportunities for the people of Kosovo to strengthen rule of law and fight corruption. As I said in my remarks, I think this is an area where every citizen of Kosovo has both the ability and the responsibility to act to protect the rule of law. So it's important that people neither be complacent nor resigned to the problems of today.
Tash që jemi në një shoqëni ku qeverisemi prej një qeverisë nacionaliste antifeministe. Sepse asnjëherë në Kosovë nuk kemi pas kaq shumë burra në qeveri, kaq pak gra. Nga 80 zëvendësministra i kemi vetëm 4 gra. Me arsyetimin që nuk ekziston një ligj i qeverisë. por dje duke monitoru, sepse ne monitorojmë ligjet, pash një vendim të qeverisë për antarët e bordit, ku ishte shkel ligji i ndërmarrjeve publike, sepse ligji për ndërmarrje publike parashe 40% gra të jenë. Realisht jemi në atë pamundësinë, ne si organizator që merrem me drejtat e grave, jemi në atë pamundësinë për ta bloku, sepse është një qeveri e cila është antifeministe, anti-gender, anti-grua. Dhe kemi shumë të pamundshme të gjejmë mënyra të komunikimit gjinor për të ardhur në atë progresin në këtë drejtim. Cila është ajo drejtja kryesore që ju si ambasador e jepni në kuptimin e kësaj që barazia gjinore është në regresin më të madh në krejt sistemin që ka ekzistuar prej mas luftës në Kosovë, cila është ajo, sepse ju kam dëgjuar dhe ju kam përcjell kohëve të fundit, deklaroni hapur, po ku e keni, a e keni edhe ju atë barierë në komunikim që nuk po dëgjohet nga kjo qeveri dhe vazhdimisht shkel ligjet cilat i avancojnë të drejtat e grave kjo qeveri. Faleminderit shumë edhe më falni se i
Well, thank you for highlighting the issue of women's rights in Kosovo. And as you pointed out, this is something that I personally have been engaged in pursuing and speaking about. Yeah, it is unfortunate that Kosovo, which is making progress in many areas, still continues to lag on the issue of women's rights. The percentage of women in the workforce, about 18%, is one of the lowest in the Western world, which is a great loss, both for people individually and for the country. I don't believe, however, that the government is not listening. I am in the fortunate position that when I, as an American ambassador, point out both positive steps and rule of law and areas where the government needs to do more, people do listen, and the government sometimes makes changes. I think it is really important to reiterate the point I made earlier. Kosovo is a democracy. You have many tools available to you to challenge your elected officials to change policies you're unhappy with. If you don't like the policies of your elected officials, challenge them. If you don't get the results you want, find new ones. You know, this is democracy. The United States is very proud that we contributed to the establishment of democracy in Kosovo. Don't blow it.
Konstituta ligjet në Kosovë i garantojnë këto. Se tot një sistematike në të këshillën gjyqësor këshillën federal gjykata pretorik. Në kohë të fundimit do të monitorohet procesin e ndërimit të kërkesave të speciale të ligjet të Kosovës. Një pretorik jashtëzakonisht e rëndësishme e specializuar në ndërtimin e luftës të organizuar shërbim paras për të ndërtuar. Në 2017, si këshilli gjyqësor, këshilli federal kanë pas probleme në zgjedhjen e kryetarit të Gjykatës Supreme të apelit të Prokurorisë së Shtetit. Gjykata kushtetuese kishte marrë dy gjykime korrektuese nga këtyre këshillave në çfarë një pikë në shoqëri civile publike që në vitin 2019 procesi për Prokurorisë Speciale të i pavarur të anshëm i bazuar në merit. Ka kemi kuptuar që në mes procesit janë të ndryshuar rregullat e lojës. Është të ndryshuar rregullorja për procesin e emërimit të prokurorëve. Janë të ndryshuar procedurat. Ka 4 kandidatë që kanë aplikuar, 2 të rinj që janë shkolluar në Amerikë, janë shkolluar në Mbretërinë e Bashkuar, janë shkolluar në Bashkimin Evropian, në start janë eliminuar. Vendimi i Komisionit për verifikimin ose lëvizjen e kandidatëve ka bërë shkelje elementare, nuk ka qenë agjendje ta përcjellë rregulloren, nuk ka qenë agjendje ta interpretojë rregulloren. Për këtë këshillit federal ne ka shkruar në leksion do të çka do të bëjmë ne si shoqëri më shumë faktorin ndërkombëtar që këto institucionet në bazë të tutës janë shumë të pavarura, por që nuk janë në gjendje të kryejnë përgjegjësitë e tyre, kompetencat e tyre në bazë ligjet, në bazë procedurës. Si ka dhënë vazhdimisht ofrojmë rekomandime, ofrojmë propozime, mundohemi të bashkojmë ata gjithmonë për të promovuar, respektuar ligjin, po që fatkeqësisht të duket politika po është më e fuqishme përpos dhe më të fortë të institucioneve të sa publiko se sa interesat e qytetarëve të Kosovës. Faleminderit.
Do you have a question?
My question would be, since also the U.S. Embassy was monitoring this process, and you mentioned that with civil society, you mentioned the case of this when the National Assembly they voted unqualified person in this very important position. So in this case,
a great deal of judicial processes here, and we speak out when we can. It's even more important for people in civil society to do what you're doing right now, to speak out as well, to highlight these issues. One of my favorite quotations from an American is from a civil rights leader named Ida Wells. And Ida Wells wrote over 100 years ago that the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. So keep turning the light of truth upon things that you think are incorrect. And as I said in my remarks, it is simply not appropriate in a democracy for the government to ignore the rulings of courts, to ignore legal processes. So there are a lot of issues like that that we need to pay attention to.
Sot ambasador, klasa e politikanëve të pasur të Prishtinës. A mendoni që institucionet, dikasteret të ndryshme qeveritare, përfshirë këto dhe botën akademike, janë kapur nga një klasë politike e cila çdo ditë më shumë po ngjan një oligarkie?
I want to repeat that I speak as a friend of Kosovo and as a representative of a country that has its own political and legal issues, so I don't mean to sound as if we have all the answers. Having said that, I think that in a democracy, an oligarchy can only take control if the people allow it. And I will say again, two of the greatest dangers to this country are complacency and resignation. Complacency, people thinking, things are okay now, this is as good as it's going to get. And resignation, people thinking, well, this is just terrible, I might as well give up on making my country better. People in Kosovo have fought and died to build a democracy, a country that believes in rule of law and rights for everybody. And I think that it's important that the people not give up if they are unhappy with the political class.
Ato që ka u thamë më herët dukurit negative të cilat e kanë përfshi kosovare, mendoj që populli i Kosovës drejt shumë edhe ndikimin e zyrës amerikane ju personalisht që këto procese shkojnë përpara me dukurit negative sa më parë të qenë mundshme të eliminojnë. Faleminderit.
Dikush tjetër? Po, ambasadorin nga klani në
Kur qytetarët kanë protestuar për vendime gjyqësore dhe qytetarët janë akuzuar se po ushtrojnë ndikim në gjyqësore. Në anën tjetër ka pas raste kur qytetarët kanë hequr dhe i nitin kosh akuza pse qytetarët heqin dhe tolerojnë në një farë forme shkeljet, qoftë nga ana e qeveritare, qoftë nga ana e sistemit gjyqësor. Dhe një pyetje fare shkurt për lidhje që mos përsërisim më, duke parë sistematikisht dështimin e akuzave të profilit të lartë, a mendoni që në Kosovë ka hapësirë që të ketë një proces vetimi për sistemin gjyqësor dhe sistemin prokurorial, ku ashtu dhe sistemin e sigurisë?
Well, to your second question, I think that deserves a thoughtful study before I can comment on it. On the broader question, though, I repeat, there are many tools available to the citizens of Kosovo in democracy to challenge governmental decisions that they think are unfair. Speak out, write, organize, demonstrate. Democracy is not, it's not a sport that you only play on election day. It's a sport that citizens have to play every single day. And of course people have lives, they have families, they have other things to worry about. But you know, authoritarian governments and governments that are not responsive to the will of the people, they count on that. They count on people being too busy to really stand together and challenge the government when they think that the government is doing the wrong thing. So it's very important for civil society organizations like yours and the media to play a leading role every day in shining the light on violations of rule of law and providing opportunities for people to have discussions. You know, I work very closely with many government officials. These are people who I believe want Kosovo to succeed. They want to see peace and justice and prosperity in Kosovo. It's not their job alone. It's your job to make sure that your leaders are serving the will of the people.
Are you familiar with the issue of former prosecutor Ellis Blocker? He's been saying that he's been living in the United States now. Are you familiar with his case? Did your country give him a job or kind of support there if he's still there? And the second question is, you mentioned the protest that should happen in a peaceful way. Tomorrow we have a veteran dossier protest against the state prosecutor Alexander Lëvizja. What do you think about this kind of protest? Thank you.
With regard to your first question, I'd like to see individual cases, if I may. With regard to the second, yeah, as I've already said, peaceful demonstrations are an aspect of democracy, and political parties as well as other kinds of organizations should have the right to demonstrate peacefully. I will say that I was shocked to find out when I was preparing to return to Kosovo after 15 years away that political parties had engaged in acts of violence in the assembly building, you know, releasing tear gas on the assembly floor. I think those sorts of actions by political parties are a disgrace, and they reflect very poorly on both the people of Kosovo and Kosovo's reputation on the world stage. So I think that political parties have a very strong responsibility not to engage in acts of violence or to violate the law.
Zotri ambasador, valleta fostrumin të korrupsionit të lartë dhe hetimin e krimeve të luftës. Sipas jush, sa po hetohen rastet e profileve të korrupsionit të lartë në Kosovë, një kriter kogja I rëndësishëm për proceset integruese të Kosovës.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to discuss that today. I don't want to give off-the-cuff, partially informed answers. I think that's disrespectful to the people involved and to the nation.
Na jena gjithë barabar, për disa jam atë barabar. Një proces, një padi qytetare civile mund në gjatë e vjetë tëra, për zyrtarët në artë e krymë në Amerikë. Në kam kjo është diçka që në mënyrë drejt për drejt qytetarë tjerë e shohin që nuk kënë barabar. Në kam ato që s'puna e barazia e shohim se tërë, me përment edhe jo. E përment punësimi jo meritorë. Nuk ka vështë jo meritorë, është edhe herë edhe opinioni publik, po edhe qeveria pak kus bazë. Kështu që ka hapësirë, ju me në animu neve në këtë hapësirë. Unë po të kërkoj veç do sankcione në ta. Polici ju kënë në uve polici. Veç kështë pas një sankcione. Deri sot që kërë rast, nuk shëjtë. Ka shumë bedim në atë e në fakturacion, se kur ka o prastu me të të Jënë të sa shkrime në media, tash edhe në nuk ponijëm sigur, ka dhe mision në media. Kështu që ka shumë raste që qeverit, tash ku flasësh për qeverinë amerikane, për qeverit e vendeve mike, se të ndihmojnë qeverinë e Kosovës, mi vendos do sankcionit buta, dështë në shqenimu, edhe na dështë mu aktivizu edhe ma shumë. Nuk është që s'jena du aktivizu, po edhe neve në shqihop një arësia si shëshrit civile, mu aktivizu edhe ma shumë. Pas njërë.
Okay, let me comment on that though. That before we get to the level of talking about sanctions, which is a very inflammatory word, I return to the word truth, all right? We are all working very hard to shine the light of truth on Kosovo. If I may offer a public service announcement, every Friday now, the U.S. Embassy on social media makes an announcement of what we see as very positive steps in rule of law in Kosovo, negative steps, and also areas where the future is still unclear. It's not clear whether something is going to turn out positively or negatively. And a lot of people are paying attention to that. We have seen the government respond positively to this sort of pressure. We've also seen people who we have praised, say that that's very helpful to them because it makes it easier for them to move forward in positive directions. So I would encourage other organizations to do the same thing. And if you have suggestions about steps that we should highlight, especially positive steps, let us know. And again, it's remarkable how often when people work collectively, civil society, the media, foreign friends of Kosovo, to point out injustices, change does happen. So don't resign yourself. Keep working.
Atëherë siç duket, në këtë bashkëlisë me ofru fundin tek i bashkëbisedimi, i nderuari zoti ambasador, faleminderit për praninë, të nderuara media.